This is the first time you've seen these two, yeah.
First time I've seen. Okay, so the obvious question is, what is it like for you guys watching those? What is the emotional swing of watching those two episodes?
Oh, we just sat back there weeping for like. I mean, that first one we made
12 years ago.
I mean, we were using payphones on the street. Yeah. That was, yeah, it was very emotional. It was very emotional. And the first one was very emotional just because I felt like I was watching our childhoods. And the second one was enraging because I think it's so fucking good, and I still am angry that it didn't go to series.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see the dancers in that goddamn show? They're all superstars now.
Yeah.
Allison Holker, I mean.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah.
Well, I'll address that directly. I mean, the first one, ABC at that point, Lost had just come out, Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, and you sort of had a sense of what they were looking for in terms of scope. And I can kind of see why that might have not fit in with what they wanted. I don't understand why Grace wouldn't have been a show that they wanted. What did they tell you?
Well, what they told me and what actually happened behind the scenes are two different things. They told me, thank you so much. It came very close. It just didn't work for us in the end. My understanding is that there were very serious politics happening behind the scenes that I had no idea, with personalities that were involved, and I had no idea, and that it went down for reasons that things go down in Hollywood that have nothing to do with the quality or the tests. Or you can imagine how high Abigail's test numbers were in Grace. And it was at the very height of, say, they were like Jennifer Love Hewitt in numbers. They were high 80s.
I mean, 3 names competing.
They were high numbers, and it was the height of So You Think You Can Dance, and it was the height of what's the dance show on ABC, Dancing with the Stars. It was a no-brainer, and it went down for reasons unrelated to how good it was.
And that one was Leslie Linka Glatter who directed
that
one, right?
Leslie Linka Glatter directed the shit out of it, and Mia Michaels choreographed it. Carrie Ann Inaba was a partner on that, and yeah. And the first one was directed by Ken Olin, we should say, and Phil Abraham, who's now a huge TV director, was the DP. Yeah. And it was costumed by, what's her name?
Pat Fields, who did Sex and the City. I mean, so Lennie Rose, I was 23 when I got cast in the show, and I hadn't worked in so long. As my agent likes to say, who I'm still with, that I couldn't get arrested.
She was scrubbing the toilets at her acting studio in exchange for classes.
Yes. And I had been an actor, a paid actor, for a few years, and then spent all that money, and then no one wanted to hire me anymore. And I read this script, and I was just like, it was so interesting. It wasn't even about working or my career. I was like, who is the woman that wrote my soul? Because I lived in New York, and I was a struggling singer, songwriter, actor, all of the above. And to read a show at 23 about, your life and your dreams and your broken heart, it was so amazing. So that was, I was like, who is Krista Vernoff? And that was kind of the catapult for me.
I will say that show, like you said, you watch it now, and I think it's beautiful, and I think it holds up. I think it's a little earnest, and I think that it looks like something that would have been on the CW at that time. And what I can tell you is that ABC changed. This is for people who want to work in Hollywood, when we talk about when they moved the finish line, when I pitched that show and when they bought that show, they were fourth of the broadcast networks. They had nothing that was working except The Bachelor. And they said to me, if you could get women 18 to 34 to stay on our network for anything but The Bachelor, you would be our hero. So I wrote Lennie Rose and cast Lennie Rose, and we went out and shot it. And in between when I sold the pitch and when we delivered the pilot, Lost, Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy premiered, and they were number one. They went from number 4 to number 1. And what they actually said to me when they called me is, you tested through the roof with women 18 to 34, but that's just not a broad enough demographic for us anymore. And so you go, well, I did what I set out to do, and now it doesn't match ABC, and you see it, but yeah.
So this was developed under Lloyd Braun and Susan Lyne, and then Steve McPherson came over, and he was in charge when it was...
It was Steve McPherson who bought it, yeah.
So.
I didn't get cast right away, by the way, just for all the great stories. Neither of these shows wanted me. Krista wanted me, but she had to promise future children, to get me cast in both of these roles. It was so interesting.
Who was in that commercial, he's one of our best friends, and he described showrunning. He's the show creator of The Fosters, and he put it so perfectly. He said, people think showrunners are the boss of the world, but really we're just middle management. And we're trying to get the people in charge to hire the people that we want. And so that's what she's talking about. I wanted her desperately, and there were people above me who didn't totally see her right away, and
still don't.
Fools. But we fought hard to cast her in both. She fought so hard for that first job for Lennie Rose. She came in, she cut her hair in between auditions. She wrote a song about a butterfly. She played it.
It was a good song. It holds up.
She brought a friend in to play guitar with her.
'Cause I wasn't like a great guitar player. I didn't want to like sweat off the guitar, just like finger slipping or anything.
She fought. This is the lesson of this panel. Fight for your dreams, because for me, both of those stories are semi-autobiographical, and it breaks my heart that they didn't go to series. But the fact that somebody gave me millions of dollars to shoot each one of those stories, and they let me cast the prettiest girl in the world to play a version of me, it's like that's all I do. I try to find really pretty people to tell my stories. No.
Well, after singing in the first one and then dancing in the second, what is the third part of the Surprising Things Abigail Spencer Can Do trilogy?
Building furniture. Fixing cars.
She can sing and dance her face off, though, right? It's amazing.
I started out in musical theater and then kind of found my way into the television world. And that's part of the thing, too, is that Krista writes these really complex, interesting roles for women. And then oh, yeah, and they dance. Oh, yeah, and they sing. So it's so awesome for me because I don't normally get to use those parts of myself and always want to.
Now, you mentioned the demographics that they were referencing, and there was a little media kerfuffle earlier this spring when Nancy Drew was not sent a series, and it was referred to as being too female, allegedly, according to Deadline. And a lot of people sort of got shocked and worked up by the shocking idea that in 2016 these notes still exist. I assume you're not shocked at all that shows would get notes like that and not make it to series as a result.
No, I'm not shocked anymore, which is heartbreaking because I came to this town such an idealist. I'm not shocked anymore, but I continue to be angry. I continue to be an activist because I'm the mother of a daughter, and it's super messed up that Nancy Drew, which we all grew up on, is skewed to female for CBS while they picked up MacGyver and reshot the whole pilot. It's... I don't understand why they don't understand that we women control what's on the TV. I mean, my boyfriend only watches things that I don't watch after I'm asleep. I don't understand, but it does. Not only it's so common that whoever in CBS publicity said that didn't even think maybe I shouldn't say it. They didn't even think maybe I shouldn't say too female. Too female is still an okay thing to say.
Does it feel like there's been any shift in the 10 years now, I guess, since Lennie Rose? Is it getting any better?
Well, I wouldn't write that rapey culture scene now that was in Lennie Rose, where she was like, you were drunk, I was just happy. And he's supposed to be... And he's supposed to be sexy in that moment. You're like, whoa, I heard the audience go, whoa. So things have changed. They have. The culture has changed to a degree.
But also, I have been... Okay, so also, I just need to... I didn't have a career before I met Krista Vernoff. She gave me a career. I couldn't get a job until that show, and then everyone saw that show in the industry, and then I've been able to work since and have gotten to play many wonderful female roles in television. I definitely feel that my roles in television have been wildly more complex than the ones that I've been able to play in film thus far. And Krista's a part of that change. I mean, that's not changing for her, the idealism that she came in with is still there, even though it's supported by all this knowledge and wisdom. She's a part of creating those really fascinating and wonderful characters. I think it's just the audiences, feeding back to the networks that it's what they're going to watch, if people have to watch it for them to want to keep making it.
I still, all these years later, what Abby is saying is I still, all these years later, write very complex female-driven pilots that don't go to series.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I do it over and over again. I'm determined to put complicated women on network television. So
Well, I mean, Abigail's on one of the most complicated shows on television in Rectify, just a spectacular show that could never in a million years air on network TV, of course. Do you think that your vision is a vision that's becoming increasingly more suited towards something that isn't ABC, CBS, Fox, CW?
Sure. But I also think that network television is going to have to, if they want to survive, expand their notions of what America wants to see. I mean, it was deeply gratifying for me to sit in this theater in Texas with 40 people and listen to them laugh at everywhere they were supposed to laugh in Grace, and sort of love to hate Michael Grace. And the fear, what I was told, one of the concerns was that my men were not sympathetic. My men aren't sympathetic enough. That I don't. You guys couldn't tell, but. So I was like, people are going to love to hate the narcissistic father. Like, I think Eric Roberts is brilliant, that pilot. In editing, if you were to go back and watch it, you would see it. I don't know if you could tell that I reverse engineered all of Chris Carmack's dialogue on his back. When he's like, I'm sober, 11 months, and we're happier together. And I didn't tell him to jump the fence. I saw him jump the fence, and I tried to follow him. He was so much more of a scumbag than that. And then in editing, I was trying to save the character. Like, oh, people don't like him. Let's, but I think that America would tune in to watch people who remind them of the fucked up people in their family. And then to watch the Sarah Graces of the world, who are the ones who are always trying to keep the family together and navigate those people. I think America would tune in for those things. So yes, I mean, yeah, I develop in cable mostly now, but but I hope to put a show on the Arrow Network.
Well, I feel like every year there's a marked shift in how the industry approaches the concept of pilot season. And pilot season, for example, outlived Kevin Riley, who was going to kill pilot season forever, and now it's back to being what it was. How do you guys feel today about that process and sort of how wasteful it is and what it yields? Because I mean, you have a new show this year, so are you feeling good about pilot season now?
We don't talk about that because I'm too jealous.
It's a thing. Because one of our dreams is that we can have a show on the air together. I mean, that would be my dream, is to be able to see to life one of Krista's visions. I mean, there's so many more opportunities and worlds we can do that in, so that's still very much my dream. It's different, a little different for me now. I haven't done a pilot since Grace. So it's been 5 years, and then I did a pilot this year, but I was in a very different position after Rectify. Rectify was ending, and I only read that pilot, and I only considered it because I didn't know cable or film. I'm a little out of it. I'm a little out of the scene. I really just read material. I read Krista actually is directing now too. I was in her first piece that she directed, and it's hopefully going to be more of a auteur maker in her life. But I don't really know. I mean, I don't really know what the system is anymore. I just think that good material will try and live on. And personally for me, I chose to do that pilot because it was just so wildly different than anything else I had done before. I mean, you'll see it's a new NBC pilot, Timeless, and it's just so different than
It's really good, and she's
else.
Extraordinary in it. And it's a great gift to all of us who love Abigail Spencer that people finally see the star that she is. How hard I had to fight to cast her in these two pilots versus how hard they fought to get her to come do Timeless is deeply gratifying when you.
And actually, why I got cast in Timeless wasn't because of Rectify. They saw Grace, because Sean Ryan, who created The Shield and also co-created Timeless with Eric Kripke, is very good friends with Leslie Linka Glatter, and Leslie recommended that Sean watch the pilot and see it. And so that's actually, again, Krista Vernoff to the rescue for my career.
Well, in principle, are you feeling like the pilot system is in need of a serious overhaul? And what would be your ideal version of how things actually get onto network television, other than that what you want gets on network television?
I was going to say, like, they would put my things on. That's my ideal version. They would put my things on. I'm the wrong person to ask that question. I'm certain that it's broken. I think that they spend a huge amount of money I think that there is probably a better way to do it. And yet I am one of many artists who survive because pilot season exists. Many, many actors, many writers make our living, for the year kind of during pilot season. And I mean, now I'm on Shameless, but there were years between Grey's Anatomy and Shameless where I was just developing. And so I don't really want them to overhaul that system. Except I want them to pick up my stuff.
Yeah.
Lennie Rose, you know, I mean, there's, I don't know. I was watching this laughing. I was like, did Lennie grow up to be Sarah? Like, it's the same story. That's like, it's the same story. Both of these pilots are love letters to art and the difficulty involved in being an artist and what happens when you sell your soul and you give up your art for a paycheck and so, you know, I am not I know writers who sell shows and they pitch like here's the end of season 5 and here's what's going to happen in season 2. And all I know is that with both of these shows, I worked very hard to create a world of rich characters who were complicated and deeply flawed and would make for good storytelling week to week. And what I know is that Lennie would have had to become a successful singer in the end of that show because I'm an idealist. And what I do remember is that one of the reasons I fought so hard to cast Abigail in Grace is that there's no way she wasn't going to start dancing again with that dude. There was no way. So she was going to be back dancing and wrestling with what it was to be almost 30 and trying to compete with, you know, it was a show about art and it was set in a law office so that I would occasionally have a legal story that I could go to if I needed an act out. Because I wrote Grace after 7 years of being spoiled by Grey's Anatomy and the medical stories. Act out. He's in surgery. Act out. And so I wanted a thing that wasn't just like arts. Act out.
So you wanted to make sure that one actually had sort of a procedural engine if they needed it
Yes.
to? And what was the week-to-week going to be on Lennie Rose? I mean, how was that going to function?
Well, the week-to-week on Lennie Rose, I wasn't worried about a procedural engine. It was really like, I have to say, like watching it now, I'm like, oh my God, could there be one more like restaurant in joke? Like I had been a waiter clearly very recently when I wrote that pilot. I was a waiter from 17 to 27, and I still, when I wrote that pilot, thought the lettuce in the kitchen was fascinating. the foam in the espresso machine. I was like, look at it's like inside the restaurant. I don't know what it would have been.
Okay, well, a little insider. So I had not been a waiter when I did the part, and I kept saying Harit covert, and I was like Harit covert, and then she literally brought and went Harry Colbert.
I spelled it out. Now my boyfriend is French, and he would say it's pronounced Harry Colbert.
Harry Colbert.
But
I couldn't say it.
But I wrote out Harry Harry Covair and held up a sign.
Literally every single day, I'd take the green bean Harit Colbert, and she's like, oh my God. So she literally just wrote it and held it in front of the lens so I would look over. Harry Colbert.
That's what this was for us too. Watching this was like a reliving. Like, here's a little inside thing of what we artists do to ourselves. When Keir O'Donnell, who's so wonderful, he's the actor who plays Harper, the novelist in Lennie Rose. He was walking down the street talking about cheese, which is my favorite scene. It was -5 degrees and he had 104 degree temperature. He had the flu walking down, and they're freezing, and Abby's like holding a cup, and by the end of the day, that's what I remember is, we became family.
Oh my God, yeah, we had never met before, but Krista is like, I don't know who I would be without her, like in every area, and I think it's worth mentioning that Grace, my dad had just died literally the day that Krista called me and asked me to come in for the show. And I was like, my dad just died. I'm going to Florida, where I'm from. And it was and she was like, oh my God. I mean, just heartbroken and just, probably thinking, I can't believe I called her the day
well, because I was calling her to yell at her because they were telling me that she was now offer only. She was going to come in and audition for Grace. And then I was like, what about Abigail Spencer? Like, it was the end of the day. I was like, where's Abigail Spencer? And they were like, oh, her agent called and said she's offer only. And I was like, come on now.
Oh, yeah.
She's my Lennie Rose. Hold on. Yeah. And I called her like, you're offer only. And she was at the airport with her father's body on her way home to Florida. And that's how an agent, the agent isn't going to say that.
But it was so interesting. So that, I clearly wasn't going to be able to do the show. And then while I was in Florida, 2 weeks later, Krista called me again. And she was like, I know you because I know myself and you are me. And you need this. You need this right now. And I really did. So Grace was my lifeline back into the world. Like I felt myself drowning. I didn't know which way was up. My father and I were very, very close. And so she called with this offering of, come do a show called Grace, where you get to dance, and it's a father-daughter story, and you get to say dad every day. And, you know, and if you can't get out of bed, I'll come and get you myself and drive you to set. I mean, that's the kind of show you're signing on for when you do a Krista Vernoff show. It's an immersion. It is family, and so it really saved my life. You know.
I love you. Let me say this to the artists in the audience, because it is so hard. And I want you to get what it takes to do it and to make it work. I didn't call Abigail after her dad died and offer her that part. I couldn't. I wasn't being allowed to by the network. I called her and said, if you want to come fight for this part, I will fight for this part with you. But you'll have to fly from your father's memorial back to Los Angeles and audition on camera with Eric Roberts. And she fucking did it. Shaking and crying and broken the way, and I've lost my dad too, and I know what that loss is. So yes, I said all of the things that I said, but when she tells that story, she leaves out of it the fire inside her that allowed her to get on an airplane and sit in hair and makeup while we tried to cover up 2 weeks worth of crying and fight for the job, because she wanted the job, because her dad would have wanted her to have that job, because she's a consummate artist. So I tell you that story because life gets so hard sometimes, and we think that maybe it's okay to give up our fight for our art or for what we want in this life. And Abigail's success and the fact that they chased her now for Timeless, and that it came because she did Grace, that is because she got up on the worst day of her life and got on an airplane and fought for herself. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for showing us those two and for sharing the stories.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for
Jeez.
watching, you guys. This was so amazing.
For us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did this for us. You didn't know it, but you did.
Are they making us get out now?
Yeah.
It looks that way.
I could go on, but I think they need this for whatever comes next.
Thank you for watching and caring and asking us questions.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.